In this podcast episode, Joe Rogan sits down with Raul Bilecky, a video editor turned independent archaeologist and explorer who documents ancient and megalithic sites in Peru. Their conversation spans a wide array of fascinating topics, from undocumented archaeological discoveries and precious ancient artifacts being looted to mysterious megalithic architecture, elongated skulls, enigmatic mummies, the impact of cataclysms on early civilizations, and the interplay between academic orthodoxy and alternative archaeology. They also touch on Peru's enigmatic ancient cultures, ritualistic practices involving psychedelics, underground tunnels, and the broader mysteries of human history. Raul begins by sharing the heartbreak of discovering vast stretches of ancient Peruvian archaeological sites that have been severely looted and undocumented. Despite the country's rich archaeological heritage, much of the funding meant for preservation and documentation gets misappropriated or stolen by corrupt officials. Over the past several decades, particularly from the 1980s to the early 2000s, raiders have extensively plundered sites, leaving behind holes, scattered human bones, and broken pottery. These looters target mummies, textiles, and artifacts for private collectors, rarely allowing museums or legitimate researchers access to the finds. Raul recounts flying drones over kilometers of such devastated landscapes where human remains and cultural relics litter the terrain, effectively transforming these places into graveyards and landfills. He further describes meeting a huacaro, a grave robber who sells looted artifacts publicly, shedding light on a hidden eco-mafia trafficking tens of millions of dollars worth of stolen archaeological objects annually. The episode delves into the controversy surrounding the Nazca mummies, which have gained international attention due to their unusual anatomy, including claims of extra fingers and toes and elongated heads. Raul expresses skepticism, emphasizing that many of these specimens appear to be sophisticated forgeries made by assembling human and animal bones with advanced taxidermy techniques. Trusted medical experts analyzing CT scans and X-rays have pointed out inconsistencies such as misaligned joints and surgical modifications, suggesting these are not genuine undiscovered species, but highly crafted hoaxes utilized with authentic bones to secure expensive valuations. Raul believes a criminal network funded the creation and promotion of these mummies to capitalize on public fascination and media series, generating revenue through shows, subscriptions, and exhibits rather than through the mere sale of artifacts. Nevertheless, he acknowledges that some mummies may be authentic ancient humans, and he stresses the need for rigorous scientific analysis and transparency. The conversation turns to the elongated skulls found largely in the Paracas region of Peru, notable for their enlarged cranial capacity, bigger eye sockets, and unusual morphology that defies contemporary human anatomy. Raul explains that many elongated skulls result from deliberate cranial deformation using binding boards during infancy, a practice observed across various ancient cultures as a status symbol. However, some skulls display features inconsistent with simple deformation, such as larger volume and altered sutures, raising questions about whether these represent a distinct branch of the human lineage or a lost species altogether. The lack of comprehensive, open, peer-reviewed DNA and osteological studies, largely hindered by bureaucratic obstacles and scarce funding, means many mysteries remain unsolved. The few studies that have been attempted hint at connections with populations from the Black Sea and Caspian Sea regions, suggesting possible migration patterns dating back thousands of years. Raul expresses hope that future cooperation between independent researchers and Peruvian authorities could unlock answers about these enigmatic remains. Raul narrates his exploration of ancient Peruvian sites, many of which predate known civilizations like the Incas. Noteworthy among these is the Norte Chico culture, also known as the Corral Supa civilization, which dates back roughly 4,000 to 6,000 years and consists of sunken circular plazas, massive platform pyramids carved into bedrock, and complex urban settlements along multiple valleys on the Peruvian coast. Despite their historical significance, many of these sites remain poorly studied or undocumented, partly due to their remoteness, funding shortages, and bureaucratic challenges. Exactly how these ancient engineers quarried, shaped, and transported massive stones remains a subject of debate. Raul recounts seeing colossal megalithic stones intertwined and precisely carved, some weighing up to hundreds of tons, edifices whose construction methods defy modern engineering explanations. He references alternate theories involving softening stone with chemical compounds derived from local plants and minerals, passed down through legend as magical plants. These methods might have made carving and fitting massive rocks more feasible. He also compares architectural mysteries in Peru with similar phenomena found in other parts of the Americas and the ancient world, including the astronomical alignments of structures oriented towards solstices and equinoxes. Throughout the dialogue, Raul and Joe discuss the often contentious relationship between independent researchers and established academia, which frequently dismisses or ridicules heterodox theories and alternative interpretations. They criticize the academic gatekeeping mentality as being ego-driven, closed-minded, and resistant to new evidence that may disrupt established narratives. Raul highlights how young archaeologists who grew up with the internet show more openness, but notes that entrenched hierarchies stifle open discourse. They emphasize the importance of admitting uncertainty rather than forcing incomplete puzzle pieces to fit pre-existing frameworks. There is some optimism expressed that advances in technology, such as ground-penetrating radar, synthetic aperture radar, and deep scanning, as conducted by researchers like Filippo Benedetto, may generate evidence that compels a re-evaluation of conventional archaeological wisdom. Further into the conversation, Raul describes the remarkable subterranean sites in Peru, such as those near the city of Chavin and Cusco, featuring extensive tunnels and labyrinths carved into rock. These underground complexes functioned as ritual spaces where participants underwent psychedelic rites using San Pedro cactus, a mescaline-containing plant used for centuries in Andean shamanism. Visitors to these tunnels reportedly experienced altered states of consciousness, enhanced by the intense acoustic properties and symbolic carvings lining the chambers. One especially significant artifact is the Lanzone monolith inside Chavin de Huantar, a jaguar-like deity carved in stone, central to the religious experience. While photography inside such sacred sites is often prohibited, Raul recounts visiting them, noting the profound spiritual atmosphere and the sense of mystery that commands respect. These complexes underscore the advanced religious practices and the deeply ritualized nature of ancient Andean cultures. The iconic Nazca lines are briefly discussed as one more enigmatic facet of Peru's archaeological puzzle. Raul describes them as geoglyphs that can only be fully appreciated from the air, suggesting complex social or religious functions, possibly tied to astronomical observations or pilgrimage pathways. He highlights the juxtaposition between well-known tourist sites like Machu Picchu, heavily studied due to tourism appeal, and lesser studied but equally or more ancient coastal sites that have been overlooked or degraded. Raul underscores the difficulty in preserving these sites in the face of natural disasters, such as tsunamis and El Niño flooding, agricultural expansion that often physically destroys ruins, and ongoing looting. He stresses that much of Peru's archaeological wealth lies hidden, unprotected, or outright forgotten beneath the desert sands or jungles, awaiting discovery or documented salvage. A recurring concern is the illicit trade in archaeological artifacts, including human remains, textiles, pottery, and metal objects, which fuels looting and destruction of cultural heritage. Raul discusses how looters use forged provenance documents to move items through legal channels and onto wealthy private collectors around the world. This illegal trade compounds problems faced by governments and scholars seeking to protect, study, and preserve Peru's patrimony. It also intersects with safety concerns for archaeologists and local communities, with instances of violence, threats, and even shootings occurring in defense of archaeological sites. In a broader theoretical context, Joe and Raul speculate on ancient Earth catastrophes reflected in oral histories and archaeological data, highlighting parallels with global flood myths, Hindu yuga cycles, and catastrophic events recorded in geological strata. They revisit concepts popularized by figures such as Graham Hancock, who proposed that highly advanced civilizations existed tens of thousands of years ago, but were erased or fragmented by global cataclysms. Raul recounts the tantalizing possibility that megalithic architecture, far older than previously accepted, may hold keys to lost histories of humanity. Such histories could explain anomalous artifacts, unexplained construction techniques, and alignments with celestial bodies, suggesting a depth and complexity to prehistory long ignored by mainstream scholarship. The dialogue briefly veers into topics of modern mystery, such as the detection of large underground structures underneath pyramids in Egypt revealed by remote scanning technology, and rumored extraterrestrial artifacts found in archaeological sites. Joe and Raul mention controversial figures like Bob Lazar, discussions about secretive military research into UFOs, and classified locations reportedly housing non-human technology too large to move. Although treated with some skepticism, these subjects emphasize the ongoing allure of unanswered questions about humanity's past, technological origins, and the possibility of contact with advanced civilizations, whether terrestrial or otherwise. Finally, Raul talks about how digital platforms like Google Earth and social media enable independent researchers to identify and document archaeological sites that remain undocumented officially. He describes his growing community of followers who contribute evidence, share research, and collaborate to map and protect Peru's heritage. Despite funding challenges, Raul's initiatives have uncovered dozens of significant locations invisible to the academic mainstream. He expresses hope that public interest and technological advances will help democratize archaeology and preserve these irreplaceable cultural treasures before they vanish either through neglect or deliberate destruction.